Hey guys, Ryan here, back with another video about ZAP, the new line being added to the Power Rangers toy line this year, which will finally, once again, give us collector grade combining Megazords. It's been a long time without one. If you think back that the Ninja Megazord was the final Bandai Legacy release, yeah, we've been waiting quite some time for something of this caliber. As I've already gone over in the first part of this, which is the 5 Megazords I really want to see in ZAP, I think there's definitely still some obvious choices that Bandai did that Hasbro must be looking at again for their own re-releases, and obviously a couple things that Bandai left on the table that they could be introducing in this, although to be fair, the green turtle's probably the least likely, isn't it? But this one, though, I really wanted to flip it round for what I really don't want to see. So here's my top 5 Megazord burn list for the Zord Ascension project. Number 5, the Wild Force Megazord. And before you start, not just because I hate this season. I'm actually, believe it or not, trying to do the fans of this a solid and talk this one up, because this is one of the best light Megazords in Power Rangers history. They brought over most, but not all, of the diecast from Japan and painted in a lot of what in Japan was sticker detail. This in a way was actually almost the pinnacle of Bandai America's Megazord interpretation of Bandai Japan's DX Mecha. As a toy, it also had good posability in the arms. The Zords looked pretty good separately and even had a tray attachment to make their 5 Zord trailer formation. It really did everything it needed to do. As well as that, it was completely combinable with all of the auxiliary Zords across that line, of which there were many, and of course the Power Rangers and Japanese versions were intercompatible, so you could start with one side of the ocean and finish the collection with the other. Really just perfect. I'm not sure though, if Hasbro were to do it, whether it would be as popular. Having said that, they are really working hard on Wild Force in the Lightning collection, and so I can only presume at this point that Wild Force Megazord is something that they're looking at for ZAP. Total assumption, but it just makes sense. These seasons where they're hammering us in Lightning collection releases, they must surely think are popular with fans, and so ZAP, it needs to kind of tie in with that. I think it is kind of an inevitability at this point that we will see a ZAP Wild Force Megazord, but I think once people get over the initial thrill of transforming the 5 Zords into the Megazord, they will start to feel a little left out without the rest of the auxiliary Zords. And that's of course not to say that Hasbro won't start introducing auxiliary Zords. I still very much doubt that they would ever do all of them. So actually still your best chance of completing a Wild Force or Gal Ranger toy line is to look for the originals. However, if you did just want a standalone Wild Force Megazord to just not ever go with anything else, then I'm sure ZAP would be a great alternative. Slightly shady reasoning here, but I think that makes sense, don't you? Number 4, Serpentera. So I say this as someone who just got one of these recently, and it's fine, but it's a nice to have more than anything. It doesn't need to tie up a slot in this line, especially considering that ZAP are currently making a big deal on the fact that they are putting everything in the right scale. So all the Megazords should scale perfectly together. So they say this could be a bit ambitious at the moment. We'll see what happens if they ever get to a super train. But yeah, Serpentera, as well we know, is gargantuan. Like, it should be like 3 times the height of like Thunder Megazord. It should be able to stand on tall the Shuttle Zord without any issue. So I don't see them doing Serpentera. I could see them maybe thinking about it, because eventually, once they've done enough good Ranger Megazords, they're going to want maybe a baddie version to face off against them. I suppose that's kind of the point of Dragon Zord. But yeah, Serpentera is another of the original Mighty Morphin era deluxe Zords that Bandai did, that they never did for Legacy, but that I don't think Hasbro should really be looking at for the ZAP line either. Now you could argue, what about HasLab? That kind of is about ambitious, over large toys that aren't designed for retail and should just go straight to consumer. But I just don't think there's actually enough Power Ranger fans out there that would want a Zord this big that has very little transformation potential. Number 3, the Zeo Megazord. So yeah, you might have picked up from my first video that this was going to feature on this list. There's definitely still an argument to be made for this one. but I just don't want them to do it. They literally just did a Zeo Megazord. I know for Hasbro they're probably thinking from that, well, we've partially started the job already, but the people that did buy that are probably going to be a bit burnt out if you try and get them to buy another one quite so soon. And I appreciate that making it combinable does completely change the name of the game. But yeah, also the warrior mode helmets on that release were really quite bad, so that's something that they really should look to fix if they did make a combinable one. I do feel that Zeo Megazord is just best realised as part of the Ultra Zord with Red Battle Zord and Pyramidas, and I just don't see Hasbro doing a giant pyramid. Yes, again, HasLab, and to be fair, the price of Pyramidas online seems to actually be picking up pace lately, so maybe there actually is more appetite out there for this than I'm giving it credit for. But yeah, Zeo kind of represents this pinnacle of all or nothing with me. I either want them to commit to doing everything, but don't just kind of leave us on the shelf with one of a trio of releases. Number 2, Lightspeed Megazord. Very similar again to Zeo. I don't know if I would want this because it needs the Super Train and the Max Solar Zord to feel complete. There is certainly a lot that they could improve on the initial release here. I think the Bandai Japan Super Mini Pla release proved that in the last few years. Things like doing the ladder arms properly in silver rather than like thin black spivets could be an obvious one. Maybe in the back of Med Rescue 5 there could be like a plate that pushes in when it combines. It could show rows of cars, like how it would rescue the cars in the program. And I do think Lightspeed Rescue is one of those seasons that is actually quite popular and probably would sell okay. But yeah, as I say, I think as soon as you have one, you're going to want the next one and the next one, and to only do maybe one would not be quite right. I just really hate the idea of getting Megazords that are sort of stranded in one mode when the originals are so cross-compatible and gave you so much playability and display potential. And top of the list for the ZAP Megazords I don't want, number 1, Ninja MegaFalconzord TV series version. So as Bandai's final legacy release, it literally feels like we've only just had it. I know it's been, what, more than 5 years now, and there's still plenty that Hasbro could probably do to improve on it, not least the Falconzord connection methods. But like I say, on my top 5 list of the ZAP line Megazords I do want, I feel that there's another much more captivating way for them to do this. It'd be more appealing and would actually be brand new to us, whereas revisiting the season 3 version, I mean, that's the release that killed off the legacy line. Do you really want Hasbro to go there? I think of the 3 Bandai Legacy 5 Zord Megazords that were released, it's probably the least interesting. They definitely added the most posability, so it probably was in a sense the closest to what the ZAP line is going to be. But yeah, maybe there's just not enough love out there for the Ninja Megazord TV show version. Let me know your thoughts on that one though. A few notable mentions. There are obviously a few that I left off either of these lists. You probably picked up on these: Thunder Megazord and Titanus. I do still think they're probably on the top 10 most obvious choices for Hasbro to go and do for ZAP, and to be honest, I wouldn't necessarily mind them. I just don't really right now see the appeal of yet another hulking great Titanus taking up space, but equally the idea of getting Megazord and Dragonzord but not having the complete Ultra Zord does seem a little too unconventional for Power Rangers. And similarly, the Thunder Megazord was actually probably Bandai's most impressive legacy release, the one that you could tell they put the most effort in, if only for the Red Dragon. But there's definitely improvements that could still be made there, no less in the looseness of the Dragon mode posability in its neck and tail, and actually the arms in Megazord mode are getting pretty loose now because of the weight of the diecast. Add all that to the famously awful Legacy Mega Tigerzord combination, which you may remember from a little video I did called Top 5 Worst Zord Builder Megazords. I've still probably got about 15% interesting curiosity in how Hasbro would handle a ZAP Thunder Megazord, and if we're honest, we probably won't have to wait too long to find out how Hasbro would manage that one. So guys, what for you are the 5 Megazords you don't want to see in ZAP? What for you would you instantly say, nope, no thank you, I'm out, if they were to announce any of these Megazords for pre-order? Once again, I've stuck to the original Saban era because I just think these are probably the most well known, but I did consider a lot of the Disney seasons and how I wouldn't really want them either. Ninja Storm being a great example, unless they were going to commit to doing all 6 of the main Zords. Similar for SPD, that whole toy line was very well integrated together, and it would be a shame to get like a new version of the Delta Squad Megazord that couldn't work in the Delta Command Megazord and couldn't combine into the Delta Max Megazord mode. So yeah, a lot of my choices are kind of this House of Cards idea of I wouldn't want them to do this if they're not also going to do that. I think that's kind of the main point I'm making about ZAP. I do think they are probably going to try and get us to a place where we can represent every season of the show with one Megazord. But to me, of course, the main appeal of Power Rangers has been within each season how cross-compatible they are. It was never about Zord Builder, it was never about mixing and matching into Frankenstein creations. I just liked how we could do what they did on the show. And yeah, this is obviously what concerns me for new versions, where you're never going to be able to get to that end goal, you're only ever going to be able to get a third of the way along. So yeah, is this just me overthinking it, or is this an actual concern out there for you guys as well? Do let me know in the comments, do subscribe, do follow me on Instagram at powerrangergram, where I'm constantly photographing old style Megazords, and I'll probably start to photograph new ZAP ones too. And until the next time, see you later.